What the actual F is the difference between bins and bin containers? This is a question that many new to Avid are asking themselves, as well as many seasoned Avid editors who are finally upgrading to newer versions of Avid. I will break it all down for you in a new segment that I'm calling
Avid 101!
Let's master Avid.
Hey, super quick. This is a video from my full Master Avid and my mini Avid online classes. If you are interested in doubling your job opportunities during this crazy time in our industry, check out the links below in the description for these classes. And now, here's your Avid tutorial. Now, normally, right, I have my bins on the other window, on my secondary monitor. I keep all my bins on the secondary monitor, but I'm having them here now so that you can see everything all at once, right? So notice about this bin, one of the things you should notice, and you can pick them up and move them by the gray bar at the top. Sometimes, come on, there we go. So you'll notice that right now I have my project window here. As a review, we got our project window by going over to Tools and going to Project, which is also Command 9. And you can map that, of course, by a menu to button reassignment to your keyboard. So we have our Project tab here. I like to keep that. I like to have my Project tab as my main bin container. Now let's talk about bin containers for a second. Your project window, of course, is, and it comes, you get one bin for free. It starts you off with one bin automatically, and that bin is right here. Now, this is new to Avid, and one of the reasons why they added that setting that we saw all the way at the beginning, Composer Classic, I think they were calling it, right? So you could do Media Composer, Composer Classic, or you could choose the setup of have it look like more like Premiere, right? And you can always choose that and on your own and look at how they set it up so that it looks more like Premiere, right? But we're gonna go with, and I hope you're joining me with looking at Composer as intended in this, because only the newest versions of Composer give you those options. The something like from 2021, Avid Media Composer from 2022 even, I don't think gives you those options. So if you're working for a company that's on those versions, you're not gonna have that option. So I want you to learn what you're gonna see in case what you're seeing doesn't match your the newest version. So it starts you off with one bin, which I moved off to the side. And I usually move this one bin off to the side to start with. But this is what you're seeing with this one bin. Now, for whatever reason, and almost nobody likes this, it starts you off, you see your project window is your bin of bins, right? Bin of bins. And you'll see all your bins here. I like to just keep my project tab out, right? Because I'm gonna use it to go Command S and save all my bins and my timeline and everything that's open all at once. Now, it also, Media Composer now allows you to see all your bins as if it was like the project window on the side and in the sidebar. And I don't care for that. And there's two ways to get rid of that. I find it confusing, honestly. And almost everybody does. I know very few people who are like, ooh, that really increased my workflow. So I don't know. If it works for you, though, do it. Send me an email and let me know how this works for you, because I'd be interested to hear, honestly. I would love to add it to my workflow. I just can't find a reason why it's more functional than the workflow I have. So if you want to get rid of this side panel, and I suggest you do at least to start because it just makes things visually simpler, is you can come up here and see how my cursor, let's get out my Pro Mouse, see where my cursor is and how it turns to those two arrows, and you can just drag it off to the side, right? And if you want to get it back, you can drag it out. You can also go up here to bin and say, theoretically, you can go to bin, and you should be able to show sidebar, close sidebar, hide sidebar. Let's see, if I do this, can I go back over? I wonder why it's not letting me do that. If I right click, it'll let me do it. I don't know why it's not happening in that pull down. But okay, so take a look at this. Let's move this bin to the middle. If I right click in here, I can go down to show sidebar and it'll reveal it back, right? If I go back here, I can say hide sidebar. What I like to do is I like to map this out of the pull down menus onto my keyboard because it drives me crazy when I open up a bin and I see that sidebar. I'm like, I don't want to see it. I don't need to see it. I've got a project tab. I don't know why you would want to see it. So anyway, I have it on one button on my normal keyboard, and I just hit that and it disappears this. This would be a menu to button reassignment on your keyboard, but I like to get rid of it. Anyway, moving on. So across the top, we have the name of the bin, right? So let's name this bin, and let's call this bin, I don't know, raw footage, or just footage, right? Footage. I usually like to, I would do Avid class footage, right? That's how I would do it, so that if I open this bin in another project later, maybe I need something from it. It doesn't just say footage. I've worked for a producer who knew a little bit of editing, and what they had done was in all of their bins were called Cam A, Cam B, footage. All their bins were called like that, just no qualifier whatsoever. And I had to open a bunch of those bins into another project. That project was also created by that same producer, and all the bins in that project were called Cam A, Cam B, footage. So I couldn't tell what came from the project I had opened it up from and what was native to my project. And that's in Premiere as well. I've had that happen where now I'm in like 50 projects created by this one producer, and now I have 50 bins called Cam A with no qualifier. So personally, I like to get organized from the jump, and that's probably how I would do it. So you notice when I clicked in here and I changed the name, then the name changed up here on the bin itself, right? So now we have Avid class footage as the name of that bin. This is the name of the bin. The tab on the side makes the bin what's called a bin container. A bin container. A bin container can hold multiple bins at once, but a bin will only hold clips in it, right? Clips including graphics that have come in, music cues, all of that. It's only going to hold your individual files. The bin container will be like a wrapper that holds all different bins in it. I usually like to group them, right? So if I have, let's do this. Let's add a couple bins, right? Come with me. Let's add a couple bins. Go over to your project window, and the way you add a bin, and you can add a bin in a couple different ways, is you can go up to you can go up to File and say New and say New Bin, right? And that will add you a bin. And then here's the bin right here. And it didn't have the bin container open. We didn't need to close that. See, let's close it up. So here's a new bin. And then the other way you can create a new bin is to just click in your project window and go Command N or Control N if you're on a PC. Now it's added us a bin that way. If you can't remember either of those two ways, here's a third way to add a bin. Right click, New Bin. Boom. And here's a new bin. So now we've got 4 bins, right? So Avid class footage. And then, I'll come up here. Let's make things easy. I'm going to come up here and go Command C on Avid Class, and we can say Avid Class, and then music, and then Command V to paste, or Control V if you're on a PC. Avid Class graphics, let's say, for the sake of argument. And we can say Avid Class, I don't know, SFX, right? Boom. There we go. So now if you notice, across the top of all of these bins is Avid Class SFX, Avid Class Graphics, Avid Class Footage, Avid Class Music. Boom. We've got 4 bins now, all open. If you notice on the bin containers, Avid Class Music, bin.1. Avid Class Footage, which was our initial bin that it gave us when we started up the project as a new project, brand new project, just says bins. Bins.3, bins.2. We can rename these. Let us first, before we rename these, let me first explain the difference between bins and bin containers to be a little bit more clear. Now you see how all of these are floating? It's because in our settings, none of these are tabbed into anywhere, right? They're not attached to anything. I can move them around wildly if I'd like. That's because in our settings, I set it up so that it says floats the bin. New bin floats the bin. That was in, if you go to File, just by way of review, into Settings, go to User, go to Bins, and it says creating a new bin or opening a closed bin floats the bin. Now, notice, by the way, underneath this, Control if you're on a PC or Command if you're on a Mac, plus double click inverts the active setting. Inverts the active setting. So if later I want to tab a bin immediately instead of having that bin float, and I'll show you this in just one second. I can just hold down Command because I'm on a Mac, or Control if you're on a PC, and double click it, and it will tab itself across the top into the active bin. Very handy. So I like to start with it floating, and then if I want to tab it, which will invert that setting, I can just hold Command down to invert that. So all of this is going to become clear. Hang in there with me. We've got all these bins. They're all floating. Now, let me rename one of these bins. No. Let's do this. Avid Class Music, horror. Right? And then let's make this Avid Class Music, upbeat. So, okay. So now we have 2 different kinds of music bins, right? And then we have a footage bin and a graphics bin. Now, this bin, the side tab is what makes it a bin container, and the top is what denotes that it's just a bin. So I want to tab in footage so that, and let's do this, instead of graphics, let's say footage, let's say interviews. Sorry about this. Let's change this up. So instead of footage, and we'll have this call B-roll. This will be better. Play along with me. Sorry for the confusion. Let's do it this way. Let's do, go ahead and rename your bins. Rename them with me. Avid Class B-roll, Avid Class interviews, Avid Class music horror, Avid Class music upbeat. This will be better. This will be better for explaining this, because sometimes this is hard to get your head around. It was difficult for me to get my head around. Honestly, when I started using it, I was like, I don't understand anything that's going on. Okay. So we've got 2 different types of music bins, and we've got 2 different types of footage bins in here. So what I want to do is the project is already titled project, but everything else is just bin 1, bin 2, blah, blah, blah. Let's do this. I'm going to take Avid class interviews, and I want to tab this in. Let me move these 3 over to the other side for just 1 second, and let's just work with 1 bin for this moment. Okay, let's take Avid class interviews. I want to tab this in the side. I'm going to tab this in the side, and I'm going to make this a bin container for all my footage. And this is going to make everything clear in 1 second. So let's take this by the side, and notice when I get to various places, it shows me these are little landing areas, landing pads. I forget what their given name is. I call them little landing pads, right? Now I could just tab it into the side, and then you see that I have the project tab and this tab, and now they're connected, right? They're tabbed together. So I could do that. And then I have my interviews here, my projects here, but that's not what I want to do. That's not how I find it. Even when I have everything on the left-hand side, all my bins on my secondary monitor, I wouldn't do this with it. I would tab this into the side. So I can't really tab it into the side, this little dock area, unless I hold down Option or Alt if you're on a PC. If I hold down Option or Alt and I drop it in there, now look, project, bin 2. I can click here and find my projects, which you can slide this up to the top. You got to be very careful, because if I slide it out, now I've undocked it, right? Now I go back in, now it's in. If I slide it out, it's undocked. I hold down Option, I tab it back in. So here we go. So now I've got project here and bins 2 here. Then let's go ahead and take B-roll. I'm going to take this, and instead of taking it by the tab and tabbing it in here, I'm going to take it by the top, and I'm going to put it in with interviews so it tabs along the top, right? I'm going to hold down Option. If I do this, right, now it's just split, now it's just docked on top of it. And that's not what I want to do. So I can take it and pull it, I can take it and pull it away, and it will undock it. By the way, one thing to note is if you dock it and you want to undock it, right, you can't just drag it into a blank space. That drove me crazy when I first started. I'm like, why can't I untab it? It won't untab. I can't pull it away. You've got to pull it away over itself, a little bit. You can't just pull it into a blank space to untab it, which is, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but maybe that helps from accidental untabbing. I don't know. But what I want to do is I want to tab this across the top. So I'm going to hold down Option again, or Alt on a PC. Now look, this is what it looks like right on Premiere, where you tab stuff. I do this all the time. I have one window with my project. I connect my sequences window underneath it, so it goes project and then all my sequences next to it. Then I have a bin in Premiere that's floating, and in that floating bin, tabbed across the top, are all different bins, right? In this case, we've got B-roll and interviews, and we could keep adding to this. We have B-roll, we have interviews, and maybe we've got verite footage. We could tab that in. Maybe we've got footage where it's come from YouTube. We could tab that in from YouTube across the top, doing the same way. I'm going to repeat this just one time. Let me pull it out by pulling it kind of over itself, not into a blank space. I'm going to pick it up right on the name, and I'm going to hold down Option or Alt, and I'm going to tab it in. B-roll, interviews, right? Now, bins.2 tells me nothing. Doesn't tell me anything, right? I'm never going to remember that. Here's my project tab, my bin of bins, and then bins.2 is my footage. So let's rename this on the side. This tab now is what they call a bin container. This bin container will contain all my footage bins. Stuff that came from YouTube, stuff that came from an iPhone, all my proper interviews, all the proper B-roll that was taken. Maybe I've got drone footage, right? I could tab that along the top, and all of this is footage. All of this is one concept that I'm keeping in one bin container. These are bins that are kept in a bin container along the side. So let's rename this. I'm going to right click on this tab and say set bin container name. So let's set this bin container name and let's call it footage. Boom, footage, project. And it, by the way, the project panel will not let you rename it, which I like because now I can't do that accidentally. And then we've got footage. Now I can say float this panel. And if we float that panel, now it's still a bin container. It still contains all my bins, even though now it's floating and not attached to this. And maybe you want to do that. Maybe you want to have your bin containers all floating separately. So footage has its own separate area. I like to have one big window with all my tabs down the side, my bin container tabs. But there are times in which I will float certain windows. And then if you want to get it back in, pull it over, right? Pull it over by the bin container tab, hold down Option, and get it into the side. Like that. Now, let's say float this panel. Let's add a bin. Let's add a new bin and call this drone. Avid class drone. Whoops, drone. I can type. Okay, so Avid class drone. Here we go. Let's say instead of tabbing this in at the top, for whatever reason, I want to do this. It is still within the bin container. It still contains this bin. I can now tab this into the side, and it'll tab it into the side with the drone footage down here. With the drone footage down here. So we've got the B-roll, the interviews. If I float this panel, float that panel, it will come out everything attached, right? So you still can do, put it in a little drop zone, if you will, like I did, right? In a little drop zone. We can do it to the side even. So it's got those two tabbed in and that to the side. Or we can tab it in like that. All of that will stay if I hold down Option and drop it in. And now I'm going to click on this and carefully slide it up because I like to have my project window at the top. So now you see when I click on the project window, I see all my bins. When I click on footage, I can tab through all these three. And now look, we've got these two left that we created, right? So let us take any one of these and turn it into a bin container. And I'm going to take Avid Class Music Horror, and I'm going to tab it into the side. Right? Now I've got Avid Class Music Horror, the bin, and I've got this bin on the side. I'm going to carefully slide it down. I'm not even using a modifier key. I'm just clicking and very carefully sliding it down the row. Now I'm going to take this bin and I'm going to hold down Option. I'm going to tab it here. Music upbeat, music horror. And I will do this with all my music bins. Now let's come over here to the side, set bin container name, and let's name this music. And since it's just a bin container, it's not the actual bin, I'm not going to say Avid class music. I want these to be on the side as short as possible, right? And so that I can see them really quickly, determine where I'm at. Here's my project window. Here's all my footage. Here's all my music tabbed in across. Now we come up to project, we hit save. Now, if you want your workspace to look like this when you reopen it, you need to come to Windows, go to Workspace, and say Save Current, right? We already have this. You could save it as a new if you want and rename it. We've already created this right here. So we're just going to go to save current. And now it's saved everything, including the floating bins. Including the floating bins. These bins are floating. They're not attached to anything. And in fact, I can take the music tab, right, and pull it away. And now this is just free floating bin container with floating bins inside the container. It's not attached to anything else. So our setup will save all of that, including if we decide we never want this music tab tabbed in on the side. We only want this entire bin container to be floating by itself and not attached to anything. It will save in your workspace, and remember that that's how you want it, because, and let me put this back over here just because it'll be visually easier to see. Yesterday, last class, in the settings class, in the first class, I'm losing track of time. We did in our bin setting, save single floating bin containers in workspaces. Because we checked that when we did our settings yesterday, I keep saying yesterday, in class 1, because we did that in class 1 and set that setting up, it will remember where you want your floating bins. I will mention that in Avid version, I believe 2021 or 2022, there isn't that checkbox. It will never remember your floating bins in your workspace. It will never remember where they are. It was maddening. I did a 6-month edit in that without having it remember it. And then in the newer version, I went and saw as I was resetting my settings for the newest version, because I had been working on a PC and now I'm working on a Mac. So I was redoing my settings and I saw that in the bin setting and I was like, oh my God, thank you, Avid, for putting that, because it was driving me crazy. Would never retain that. So just remember that we already set that setting up. That setting is very important. You can go up to Windows and say save current workspace, and it will remember where all your bins are, even the floating bins, because we made that check mark right there in our settings on lesson 1. By way of review, along the side, bin containers. These tabs along the side, bin containers. Tabs across the top, bins. Bin containers, bins. And there you go. We've got our Composer windows. We're going to go all over this as we import footage. And timeline, we're going to go over all this other stuff coming up. We're getting close to actually editing. Trust me, I promise it's coming your way. Hang in there with me. Let's go to the next lesson. The next lesson, we are going to quickly learn how to find the attic, which is equivalent to the autosave vault. So join me over there. It's going to be a super short lesson, and then we're going to import footage, and then we're going to edit. It's going to be glorious. Stay with me.
Thanks for watching. More Avid tutorials to come. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and if you're interested in doubling your job opportunities and opening up a world of new gigs for yourself, don't forget to check out those links below in the description for my Master Avid and my Mini Avid courses. See you in the next Avid tutorial.